Scientists make a shocking discovery deep beneath the earth. Hidden within the thick layers of soil, they uncover a massive giant who had been buried alive for more than 10,000 years, yet somehow remained immortal the entire time. In ancient times, trolls came into human lands from distant mountains. Their bodies were made of stone and earth, their hearts of snow, and their bones of mountain crystal. For a long time, they lived side by side with humans in peace and harmony, respecting one another. But one day, Europe began to change. A young Norwegian king, Olaf the Saint, was tasked with converting the country to Christianity. In this new faith, there was no place for ancient creatures. From the safe darkness of forests and mountains, he drove them out into the sunlight, where its rays turned them into stone. With a sword in one hand and a Bible in the other, Olaf cleansed Norway of trolls. This slaughter raged for a long time, and the giants eventually grew terrified of Christian relics. The age of ancient beings came to an end. The king showed no mercy. He killed without hesitation, never considering the age of the trolls. At this moment, a woman stops her husband, saying that this legend is not meant for the ears of their little daughter. But the girl asks them to continue. She is very curious about what happened next and wonders why no one helped the trolls. If she had lived back then, she says, she definitely would have helped them. Laughing softly, the parents tuck their daughter into bed and promise that one day they will take her to see the troll wall. Before falling asleep, Nora asks them to sing her a song. Smiling gently, the woman sings a lullaby about a troll mother and her children. 30 years later, in the valley of Steinbudelen in the Jotunheim Highlands, an unknown man arrives at a remote house and knocks loudly on the door. When no one answers, he steps inside and begins looking around. On one of the tables he notices a cup with a hot drink and realizes that someone must still be in the house. Suddenly, someone attacks him from behind, knocking him to the floor and trying to kill him. In desperation, Andreas Isaacson begs Nora to spare him. Surprised to see an old acquaintance, the woman finally lets him go, though it is obvious from her expression that she is not happy to see him. Not knowing how to start the conversation, Andreas begins looking through the books scattered across the tables and picks one up. This immediately irritates Nora. Snatching her things from his hands, she demands to know why he came. Afraid of how she might react, the man finally admits that he came to ask for her help. She instantly understands what he is talking about and firmly refuses. She has no intention of ever working for the government again. As Andreas continues to look around the house, he notices photographs of her parents hanging on the wall. There are also newspaper clippings describing how she was removed from her scientific work and expelled from the Troll Commission. Among the papers on the table, he suddenly spots his own book. He is deeply touched to realize that she bought his work. Just then, Nora returns to the room. When she notices what he is holding, she smiles and tells him she liked it, especially the part where he dedicated the book to her father. Looking at his old friend, Andreas quietly tells her that his new discovery would have made her father proud as well. Hearing this, Nora can hardly believe her ears, and in that moment, she realizes that she can no longer refuse to help. After some time, Nora and Andreas set off on their journey. As their helicopter flies over the mountains, the man hands the woman a set of non-disclosure documents to sign, casually calling it nothing more than a formality. The scientist clearly does not like the idea, but in the end she signs the papers anyway. A little later, Nora begins to recognize the surroundings. They have arrived at the Mork hydroelectric power plant, and the realization surprises her. Inside, the friends are greeted by two professors whom Nora had met once before. The men apologize for their unfortunate first meeting. At that time, the government did not yet have access to Project Utun or to the information they now possess. But now everything has changed. Everyone knows about the events that took place in Mork during World War II, the race to build the first atomic bomb and the heavy water operation that aimed to sabotage Hitler's plans. However, according to the professors, all of that was merely a cover story. The real reason for the operation was something completely different, and the struggle was not truly about heavy water at all. With those words, the men lead Nora into a massive hangar. The moment she looks ahead, she can hardly believe her eyes. Standing right in the middle of the hangar is a gigantic troll. Stunned, Nora slowly approaches the giant. Along the sides of the hangar, she notices several laboratories, while Andreas begins explaining the details. The troll was discovered 100 years ago and given the name Utun, after the first beings from Scandinavian mythology. Personally, however, he prefers to call it the Megatroll. One of the professors explains that they have taken every precaution to protect the people working there. The giant is surrounded by ultraviolet lamps and restrained with heavy chains. At that moment, Marian Radani enters the room. She has been leading the project for the past 2 years. The woman is clearly irritated. She believed they could manage perfectly well without Nora, even though she admits she admired her bravery during the events in Oslo. In response, Andreas reminds her that if the project does not show real progress soon, it will be shut down. Reluctantly accepting Nora Tideman's presence, the scientist begins explaining their research. The troll is currently in hibernation, and if it ever wakes up, they might finally find answers to many of their questions. While studying the giant, they discovered something similar to a pulse and a heart. However, its internal structure resembles forest soil more than human tissue. According to DNA analysis, it is genetically closer to a pine tree than to a human being. Hearing this, Nora says that the troll is part of nature itself. In the legends, its body is said to be made of stone and earth, while its bones are formed from mountain crystal. After the conversation, Andreas leads his friend deeper into the laboratory. There, she meets Sigrid, the man's beloved. After everything they went through, the couple decided to start a family and are now expecting a child. Next, he shows Nora an entire library filled with books in different languages. Every single one of them tells stories about trolls. They also discovered an ancient document written by King Olaf himself. Part of the document has been lost, but the surviving section was successfully translated. It turns out to be the Law of Olaf the Saint concerning trolls, dated 1030, written shortly before the king fell in the Battle of Stiklestad. One of the professors explains that this troll is probably not the only one. Most likely, there are others, and if they ever emerge into the world, it could lead to a disaster. The laboratory has enormous resources, but despite that, their research has reached a dead end. What they need now is someone who thinks outside the box, someone with an unconventional mind. That person is Nora Tideman, and that is exactly why they asked for her help. Not knowing how to process everything she has just heard, the woman asks for a couple of minutes and says she needs to step into the restroom. But the moment she leaves the laboratory, she heads straight for the troll. Climbing all the way to the very top, she gazes at the giant in fascination. Then she places her hand on it and begins singing an ancient song. Suddenly, something completely unexpected happens. The troll wakes up. Its eyes slowly open. Instantly, the monitors begin beeping, signaling sudden changes. Scientists rush toward the noise. One of the men orders the lamps to be activated immediately and demands they be used at the slightest sign of danger. But Marion Radani objects. She insists that they need the troll alive. Seeing that no one is listening to her, she accidentally spills a cup of coffee onto the activation button, disabling the control panel. At that moment, the giant fully regains consciousness and realizes it is chained. Using its monstrous strength, it snaps the restraints and breaks free. Panic erupts. People scatter in every direction. Andreas notices Nora standing high above and shouts for her to run immediately, but she does not have time. With a powerful strike, the creature knocks the elevator cabin loose, sending it flying across the entire hangar. Luckily, the scientist escapes with only minor bruises, and her friend helps her climb out of the wrecked cabin. Meanwhile, Professor Mueller picks up a sample that had rolled across the floor. It had been taken from the troll earlier. He hides with it in a corner of the hangar. The military tries to stop the giant, but all their attempts fail. Under the creature's overwhelming force, they are forced to retreat. The troll smashes everything around it and kills one of the professors. Realizing there is nothing they can do, the people run outside, hoping they might at least escape the monster there. The moment they reach the open air, the troll punches a massive hole through the mountain and breaks out of the laboratory. Taking a deep breath of freedom, the giant slowly turns and walks away. Horrified, Andreas looks at Nora and asks how she managed to wake the giant. When the authorities learn what has happened, the Norwegian Air Force is immediately put on full alert. Nora, Andreas, Sigrid, and Marion arrive at one of the military bases. There, they run into an old acquaintance, Major Christopher Holm. The last time they met, he was still only a captain. The scientists are quickly taken to an emergency meeting. Before it begins, Tideman and Radani get into an argument. Their views on the giant could not be more different. Marion believes her project could be extremely valuable for science and medicine, but Nora strongly disagrees. In her opinion, the entire project is immoral. While studying the troll, the researchers decided that humans come first, but they forgot one crucial thing. The creature is not just an object of study, it is a living being with thoughts and feelings. Their argument is interrupted when the Prime Minister of Norway enters the room. The man immediately orders that the troll be destroyed at any cost. From the very beginning, he had opposed the project as soon as he learned about it, and now his fears have been confirmed. Marion asks him to give them one more chance. She promises they will try to bring the giant back under control, but the Prime Minister refuses. His decision outrages Nora. She reminds him that once before they had already killed an innocent troll. That incident should have taught them something, but the Prime Minister remains firm. 3 years ago, during the operation involving church bells, his own brother was killed. He says he will never repeat the mistake made by his predecessor. After finishing the conversation with the scientists, he gathers the military for a briefing to discuss the upcoming operation. After speaking with the Prime Minister, Nora feels completely hopeless. Andreas tries to encourage his friend and reminds her that it is too early to give up. His words have an effect on her, and she decides they must take action. Without wasting any time, she heads to the military command room to hear their plan. At that exact moment, Christopher is explaining the strategy. As Nora and Andreas enter the room, they hear the Major reporting that the troll has disappeared into the fog. By evening, the fog should clear, and at sunset the giant will be able to move freely. He orders the use of their newest technology and gives his soldiers 30 minutes to prepare. Nora approaches Christopher to discuss the operation, but he does not even want to listen. During the previous mission she served as a scientific consultant. Now she is just a civilian. No matter how much he might want to, he cannot allow her to participate. After saying this, he leaves the room with his friend, a soldier named Amir, but the scientist has no intention of giving up. She reminds the Major that he owes a debt to her father. The words immediately make Christopher remember the mistake he once made, a mistake that cost people their lives. Nora quickly reassures him. Her father died a happy man, she says, and trolls have been her entire life. Finally convinced, Christopher agrees to allow both Nora and Andreas to join the mission. When they enter the hangar, the Major shows the scientists several helicopters equipped with powerful ultraviolet lamps. This technology was specifically designed to fight trolls, creatures known to fear sunlight. At that moment, Marion appears and asks to come with them. Completely captivated by her beauty, the Major agrees without hesitation. Before leaving for the mission, Andreas says goodbye to Sigrid. He promises her and their unborn child that he will stay safe. As soon as the preparations are complete, 2 helicopters lift off and head out to search for the troll. Meanwhile, at the Hemsettle ski resort in Buscaroo County, a crowd of people is enjoying their vacation. They're skiing down the slopes, dancing at a party, and simply having a great time. Suddenly, the building is shaken by a terrifying roar. Frozen with fear, people have no idea what's happening, and in the next moment the roof is torn off. Through the massive hole, they see the head of a troll. Not realizing the danger they're in, the vacationers pull out their smartphones to film the giant. But within just a minute, real panic erupts. The creature grabs several people and devours them. Terrified, the crowd scatters in every direction, trampling and knocking each other down as they run. Watching all of this from above are soldiers arriving in helicopters. Realizing they have already allowed people to die, Christopher gives the order to attack the monster. The helicopters move closer and switch on their powerful searchlights, but even that isn't enough to defeat the giant. The creature begins to fight back and manages to knock down one of the helicopters, the one piloted by Amir. Realizing he has lost control and is about to crash, he says goodbye to Christopher, and then the helicopter plunges rapidly to the ground and explodes on impact. Furious over the death of his friend, Major intends to destroy the monster immediately, but Nora convinces him not to do it. Reluctantly, he agrees with her. They can't defeat the creature right now, and he has no choice but to let the troll escape. As soon as the giant disappears, the group heads toward the wreckage of the helicopter and the remains of the crew. Major is horrified. She had no idea trolls were capable of something like this. Nora explains that not all of them are like that. The giant they killed 3 years ago wasn't like this one. He had been forced to defend himself against humans and never attacked first, although the official reports conveniently left that part out. Unfortunately, most monsters are created by humans themselves. Major responds to this information with irony and sarcastically promises that next time she'll apologize to the creature. Her words make Andreas wonder if it might actually be possible to communicate with trolls somehow. After a brief pause, Nora admits that she knows someone who could act as a negotiator. A little later, the entire group heads to an abandoned military facility in the village of Dovrefjell. Leaving the helicopter outside the perimeter, they crawl through a hole in the fence and descend into the caves below. At the same time, in the Gudbrandsdalen Valley, an older man is hammering a sign next to the front door of his house. At that moment his wife calls him from the store and tells him she has picked out new wallpaper for their bedroom. While talking on the phone, he steps back to admire his work and suddenly notices the ground beginning to tremble. Then he hears a strange sound. Turning toward it, he sees an approaching troll and freezes in horror. Paralyzed with fear, the man silently watches as the giant walks straight through his house, once again completely destroying it, just like it did 3 years ago. Finally pulling himself together, he sadly tells his wife that now they're going to need more than just wallpaper. Meanwhile, Nora and the others continue deeper into the cave. Along the way, Margin offers her condolences to Christopher over the death of his friend. When they reach a cliff edge, Tidemann stops everyone. They have arrived at the right place, a hunting pit. According to legend, people once kidnapped the child of the Troll King to lure him into a deadly trap. Massive spikes were carved with Christian symbols to inflict as much damage on the giant as possible. But the Mountain King survived and managed to climb out of this pit 3 years ago. If the legend is true, it's very strange that the child's remains were never found. After walking a little farther into the cave, Nora stops everyone again. She takes out a small stone and taps out a rhythm with it. To everyone's surprise, the rock wall in front of them begins to move. It turns out to be a young troll, the very same lost child of the king. The scientist has come here many times before, but only now has he decided it's safe enough to reveal himself. Stretching out her hand, she sings the same ancient song to the little troll she calls handsome, and he responds. Having finally established contact with the giant, Nora asks him for help. A little later, the entire group heads to the Boverdalen Valley in search of the escaped troll. Waiting for the creature to come closer, Nora fires a flare to attract the giant's attention. Enraged by the presence of humans, the monster prepares to attack them, but suddenly Handsome bursts out from beneath the snow and stops him. To the people's great disappointment, the two trolls fail to communicate. The Jotun attacks the king's son, and in the short but brutal fight he quickly overpowers him. With a powerful kick, the troll shatters the ice, sending Handsome plunging into the deep fjord below. Nora barely manages to escape in time and save herself. With tears in her eyes, she watches as the young giant disappears beneath the ground. Then she runs toward the helicopter. Miraculously, they manage to dodge the massive arms of the Jotun and take off. After arriving at the air ambulance base in Dombas, the group discusses their next plan of action. Looking at the map, Marion notices that the Jotun is following an old pilgrimage route that leads to the city of Trondheim. In the past, the city was called Nidaros and served as the capital of King Olaf. The Nidaros Cathedral is also located there. Nora remembers that her father used to talk a lot about the king. It was from Nidaros that Olaf gave the orders to hunt down and destroy the trolls. The giant isn't heading toward the city by accident. He's going there for revenge. Without wasting any time, the entire group urgently flies to Trondheim to meet with Esther Joanna Tiller and search for the relics of St. Olaf. After arriving, they enter the cathedral. The woman tells them it's unlikely they'll find anything because the cathedral has already been studied inside and out, but she still leads them into the underground chambers. On the way, Nora shares her doubts. She doesn't understand why the church would decide to hide Olaf's remains. There can only be one explanation. The king must have had some kind of conflict with the church. After thinking about it for a moment, Esther agrees with the scientist. Sometime later, in one of the underground chambers, the group finds a fresco depicting the death and burial of the king. While examining the painting, Andreas accidentally bumps into the wall. A small piece of stone falls out, revealing a round hole behind it. Esther immediately realizes that this isn't just a random piece of stone. It is located exactly where Olaf was struck during the battle. That gives her an idea. In the 3 other places where the king was stabbed with a spear, there might be the same thing. She immediately tests her theory and, to everyone's surprise, 4 holes appear in the fresco. Nora notices that they resemble keyholes. Looking around, she grabs a torch hanging on the wall. Its handle fits perfectly into the opening and turns like a key. There are 3 more torches in the room, and one by one they are placed into the wall as well. As soon as this happens, Nora and Andreas, with enormous effort, manage to turn the heavy stone door and open it. Inside, the group discovers the tomb of Olaf, and beside it an endless spring filled with holy water. Examining the king's remains, the scientists notice that the sword has been preserved in perfect condition. Christopher explains that it was made of silver, which is why it never rusted. Next to the sword, Nora notices a sheet of paper, the second part of the document that had been kept in the Mork laboratory. Translating it with the help of Sigrid, they learn that the king changed his views at the end of his life. He wanted to create a sanctuary where trolls could live in peace. However, the church opposed this idea, and that is why they killed him. Now everything becomes clear. The troll isn't seeking revenge against Olaf, but against everything connected to humans and Christianity. The news reports talk about the troll that destroyed a ski resort and is now moving toward Trondheim. On its way there, it destroyed the home of an elderly couple, just like another giant did 3 years ago. So far, the military has been unable to deal with the threat. Other countries are also expressing concern, wondering whether the monster might become a danger to them as well. Against the backdrop of these alarming reports, the Prime Minister decides to make a public statement, announcing that Trondheim is effectively lost. The government will do everything possible to evacuate all residents from the city, but what will happen after that remains unknown. Meanwhile, Christopher is contacted by command and informed that the troll will reach Trondheim in just 2 hours. The military has failed to stop it, and a full evacuation has been announced for civilians. He and his team are also ordered to return to base. However, Nora, along with the major, strongly objects. They refuse to simply give up, and the others support their decision as well. Now they must come up with a way to stop the monster. Pulling out her notes, the scientist finds a reference from ancient times stating that silver was once used against giants. Tideman suddenly has a realization. The key is not just the metal itself. Silver does not rust, which means it would not be affected by holy water. Immediately, she pulls out a small stone fragment, a piece taken from the dead troll. Then she dips her knife into holy water and touches the sample with the blade. Instantly, the tiny fragment of the giant dies. At that moment, the group comes up with a plan to defeat the Jotun. They discovered a holy spring inside the tomb, which means there will be no shortage of water. Now all they need are people. Without wasting any time, the group heads into the city where people are being evacuated. There, they explain their plan and ask for help. The local residents respond with great enthusiasm, volunteering to assist. They are ready to defend their city. The military joins them as well. A massive preparation begins. They start building homemade bombs, grenades, and rockets filled with holy water, while also setting traps and preparing ambush positions. During this time, Andreas calls Sigrid and promises her that he will not throw himself into the middle of the fight. His job will simply be to ring the bells. After 2 hours of intense preparation, the city is completely ready to face the monster. When night falls, the Jotun arrives in the city. The people greet him with volleys from every weapon they have, but all their efforts prove useless. They manage to wound the giant, but not enough to kill him. The ringing of the bells deafens him, but the monster quickly destroys the bell tower. Andreas and Esther barely manage to escape and rush out of the cathedral. At one point, it seems like everything is already lost. Christopher orders all units to retreat and then activates the traps, but even those fail to cause any serious damage. Desperate, the people fall back under the monster's assault, but suddenly Handsome appears. He did not die in the fjord and has come to help the city. He charges straight into a brutal battle with the Jotun. Nora realizes that the young troll is weaker and is slowly losing the fight step by step. Everyone understands that they have to somehow help in this battle. Then Andreas suggests destroying the Jotun from the inside. The idea is to throw a bomb filled with holy water directly into his mouth. Christopher is against this plan. They only have one charge left, which means there will be only one chance. But Isaacson is ready to take the risk. Trying to help the king's son in any way they can, Nora and Marion run to the shore and begin firing shells filled with holy water at the furious giant. At that moment, Christopher and Andreas take off in a helicopter. During another sharp maneuver, the remote detonator for the bomb slips out of the cockpit and falls down. Now the device can no longer be activated remotely. After thinking for a moment, the scientist makes a difficult decision. The major tries to talk his friend out of it, but he refuses to change his mind. The giant will not stop at just one city. Then the scientist calls his beloved, says goodbye to her, and asks her to take care of their baby. And the moment the helicopter flies directly over the troll's head, Andreas jumps straight into the monster's mouth, sacrificing his life for others, for the city, for his friends and his family. His friends watch his heroic act with pain in their hearts and tears in their eyes. His sacrifice works. Jotun is mortally wounded. At that moment, Handsome rises behind him and finishes the enemy. He pierces the giant's chest and rips out its heart. At the cost of their friend's life, the people finally achieve victory. After the battle, Esther writes a new book about Olaf's tomb. Nora takes care of Sigrid and her daughter, while Christopher and Marion begin a relationship. Together, they create a new shelter for Handsome. Now he lives close to people and under their protection. After the credits, Professor Mueller contacts a general. The man reports that the Jotun sample he managed to save is developing. Right now it is still very small, but they just need to wait. At that moment, a tiny and furious troll suddenly emerges from the little stone fragment. Question for the viewers: do you think that sometimes humans create their own enemies by destroying those they could have tried to understand instead? Share your thoughts in the comments down below, give a thumbs up, and subscribe to the channel. See you in the next videos.